World Underneath, Mischief. Chapter 1, Rule Number 1. 2046, Early Spring. Good evening, listeners. We're talking to you live on Combat Zone FM. I'm your host. The armoured truck veers onto a deserted road under the moonlight. The signal fades in and out and the vehicle's radio crackles. Let's talk about ambushes tonight. Linton, the driver, steps on the gas. The moving truck gradually picks up speed, its cabin swaying and creaking as if on its last legs. He glances at the door leading to the back of the vehicle. The curtain is drawn and obscures the interior. It's quiet and nothing seems amiss. At least, that's what he tells himself. His job is just to drive. The cargo back there is under the direct supervision of Ever's researchers. It's none of his business. He's been doing this for years without incident. Tonight, however, is different. Maybe it's the pitch-black surroundings and the quiet road, or perhaps it's the violent swaying of the truck and its bone-chilling creaks. Whatever the reason, Linton can't shake off this uneasy feeling. To drown it, he reaches out and turns up the radio. Here's the first rule for a successful ambush. Conceal your strengths. Just as the radio host finishes speaking, a young, amused voice resounds beside Linton's ear. Well, he's not wrong. Linton's heart nearly stops. He slams on the brakes. The inertia throws them forward, and the person beside him playfully lunges at Linton. A cold, sharp metal blade is pressed against his collar and thus his neck. You want to live? I'll give you 5 minutes. Run. The young man's voice is chillingly playful, reminiscent of a child taunting caged animals at a zoo. It'd be infuriating if Linton weren't paralysed with fear. He glances back to see the door to the cargo area is wide open. A nauseating stench of blood wafts out. Inside, a few motionless researchers are drenched in crimson. They're clearly beyond help. In the centre of the compartment, 2 sets of restraints that should have secured a person have been cut open. The escapee now crouches beside him, his blade brandished. Only one thought races through Linton's mind. Run. He stumbles into an alley. It's so dark that not even the moon casts its light there. He crouches behind a large dumpster, his heart pounding so violently that he swears he can hear his nerves screaming. Time's up! I hope you found a good spot. Footsteps echo at the alley's entrance and are accompanied by the young man's cheerful laughter. Linton swallows, hugging his knees and willing himself to become inconspicuous like a discarded piece of trash. Through a small gap he peeks out. He sees a slender figure, tall for his age, moving with unnervingly carefree steps as he searches and talks. If it weren't for the shining blade in his hand and the blood staining his clothes, Linton could almost believe this was just some harm-free game of hide-and-seek. Tap, tap, tap. The sound of footsteps on pavement fades into the distance. Linton allows himself to breathe and shakily stands up. Something moves in his periphery, but when he turns to look, there's nothing but darkness. It's over, Linton reassures himself. Not quite, the voice chuckles. The laugh is like a cold hand tapping Linton's shoulder. His legs give way and he tumbles as he turns. Terrified, he stares at the figure emerging from the shadows. But I heard you. Walk away, the young man grins, seemingly in high spirits. Your ears must not be working, I never left. Impossible. Terror floods Linton's mind. Without thinking, he scrambles to his feet and dashes to the unobstructed exit. Not so fast. You didn't think it'd be that easy, did you? Another figure suddenly appears and blocks Linton's last escape route. Linton finally understands what's happening. 2 individuals with identical faces have him cornered from both sides. They wear the same sly grins, and they fiddle with their blades in perfect unison. Allow me to do the introductions. I'm Luke, and the one behind you is my shadow, Kieran. We were going to let you off the hook, but someone snitched on us to the guards when we tried to escape last time. That was you, right? Linton breaks into a cold sweat. No, it wasn't. I just... Okay, save your excuses. Kieran, holding a blade, rests his cold hand on Linton's shoulder again, which sends another shiver down his spine. People will say anything when they're begging for their lives. One of the researchers told us how sorry they felt for us. You think we believe that? Luke, do you want to do the honours, or shall I? I'll do it. Any last words? On second thought, don't bother. I'm not really in the mood to listen. Kieran sits cross-legged in the filthy alley, resting his chin on his hand as he watches Luke pin Linton against the wall and press the blade to his throat. In the darkest hours of the night, the spurting blood vanishes, and so the final cry of a life on death's door is swallowed by the darkness. Monozygotic twin comparative test record. Subject ID 808. Subject names: Luke Kieran, age 16. experimental side effect log. Subjects mutually influence each other's visual, pain, and auditory senses. Here are examples of this phenomenon. 1. The subject Luke can see images within Kieran's field of vision and vice versa. 2. The subjects Luke and Kieran can experience the same level of pain at the same time. 3. Evaluation results. After the protocore exposure, both subjects show rejection reactions. A transformation occurring within 3 months is highly possible. Comprehensive risk assessment far exceeds standard values. Subjects are to be transferred to the disposal site for termination. Notes. The disposal site is adjacent to the N109 zone. Researchers must complete the firearms request form and collect weapons for self-defense before leaving. Transformation within 3 months. That's a fancy way of saying we won't live past 3 months. Kieran wipes the blood from his face and hands Luke a dirt-smudged document from the ground. After skimming it, Luke shrugs and nonchalantly scratches his chin. It's just a prediction, right? They might be wrong. Didn't someone outlive their estimate before? The younger one of the 303 twins. Phi something. I can't remember. Whatever. It doesn't matter. We finally made it out, and if we only have 3 months left. Luke leans against the armoured truck. He raises an eyebrow. Then, his eyes widen as he looks at Kieran and he pounds his fist on the hood excitedly. What is it? Based on that reaction alone, Kieran knows his brother's mind is probably concocting another scheme to turn the world upside down. Since we're on borrowed time anyway, why don't we go out with a bang? How about doing something epic in these last 3 months? Eager, Kieran leans in. Despite Luke's ideas always ending up as messes he has to clean up, the prospect of doing something epic still holds an irresistible allure. What do you have in mind? Check this out. Luke points to the name N109 zone in the notes section of the document. Do you remember Silas? The guy the researchers mentioned before? The protocol smuggler? Yeah, that ruthless boss of Onykinus? Exactly. Excited, Luke hops onto the hood of the truck. Let's kill him! Nothing can be more epic than that, right? Kieran bursts into a fit of laughter. What if he's 100 times stronger than us? If we try to kill him, wouldn't that be even more fun? They exclaim in unison. But Kieran quickly suppresses his bubbling excitement. He tries to be sensible. Wouldn't it be easier for Silas to kill us than for us to kill him? So what? Luke sits cross-legged, the enthusiasm in his voice gradually fading and being replaced with calm. Have you seen the ones who transformed? I'd rather get killed and die early than become something like that. After a long silence, Kieran nods. He crumples up the document and tosses it behind him. True. We should count ourselves lucky if we get killed by him. You ready? Let's go. In the depths of night, the two brothers walk side by side down a path that leads a person away from all light. It lazily stretches into the horizon. I hope Silas turns out to be an interesting guy. Chapter 2. Rumour. Here's the second rule of a successful ambush. Know your enemy. It's been 14 days since Luke and Kieran arrived in the N109 zone. For the past 2 weeks they heard all sorts of rumours about Silas. I heard Silas has been in cahoots with Wanderers for ages. He's just waiting for the right moment to blow up the N109 zone. Well, they say Silas has a permanent luxury suite at Solon Hotel. The walls are stuffed with the bodies of his enemies. It's haunted at night. Oh, I heard Silas is the son of that stock market tycoon from Lincoln City. Really? Someone told me Silas is the stock market tycoon himself. Kieran doubles over from laughing, but his hands never stop crafting darts. So, did you find out what Silas actually looks like? They say he doesn't have a fixed appearance. He wears a new face every day. No one has ever seen his real appearance. Luke can't help but chuckle at his own words. Before he can finish laughing, Kieran chimes in. Well, I heard he's quite young, but he has to drink the blood of teenagers every day just to maintain his human form. Laughter fills the small house they've claimed as their temporary home once more. Most buildings in the N109 zone are renovated from previously derelict structures. In the shadows where neon lights from the bustling streets don't reach, it's easy to find a vacant space that's not too dilapidated. It's perfect for 2 unexpected visitors new to the area. But Luke and Kieran aren't the only new faces. Every day, people like them flood into the N109 zone. Lately their neighbours have been multiplying. Some disappear after a few encounters, never to be seen again. Others schedule a get-together one night and fail to show, only for the twins to learn the next day that they died 2 blocks over. The N109 zone is like a beast lurking in the darkness. Its maw is wide open to devour everyone who stumbles in. Here, death is just a matter of time. The only way to cheat it is to find the master of this savage beast, and his name is Silas. In their 2 weeks here, amid all these far-fetched rumours, everyone seems to agree only on one thing: kill him, replace him, or become his subordinate. Last night, someone told me Silas is celebrating his 80th birthday today. The party's at... The ice maker in the room suddenly interrupts Luke's dubious rumour. It's the only appliance in the house that still works. Luke waits next to it. He scoops up 2 cubes as they fall and pops them into his mouth. He turns back. "You want some ice?" Kieran waves his hand. "Ice reminds me of when I got beat up. I'll pass." Laughter fills the room as Luke tosses an ice cube at Kieran before plopping onto the couch and crossing his legs. Serves you right. Years ago, during their first escape attempt, Kieran had gotten into a scuffle with the guards and ended up with a mouthful of blood. 2 weeks in solitary confinement couldn't break him. He endured the pain in stubborn silence and refused all medical treatment. In the adjacent cell, Luke yelled at him, "Next time you decide to play tough guy before the medical staff, could you maybe ask me beforehand? I'm also in pain." During that time, Luke developed his love for ice. It was to initially numb the pain that wasn't his own, and it later developed into a thrill for the cold. Kieran, after his 2-week confinement, took the lesson to heart. The day his punishment ended, he exacted his revenge with a dart he made. After that, crafting darts became a hobby. It brought him joy. "Remember Sherman? He's the guy we met at Elysium." Kieran quickly shakes off the cold and picks up where he left off. "Yeah, the peacock. How could I forget? Anyone who can strut around the N109 zone like that and still breathe must have some serious support." Luke crunches the ice in his mouth. "You think Silas is behind him? What are we waiting for then? Let's find him." He's about to bolt out the door when Kieran, as if he's done this a million times, grabs his collar and pulls him back. He presses the finished darts into Luke's hand before releasing him. "Now we can go. I've been tailing Sherman for a while. Oneikinus is about to attend an important business meeting. Silas might be there. We should check it out." Luke pockets the darts and pushes his slightly overgrown hair to the back. When he opens the door, he notices Kieran tying his hair back into a short ponytail. After thinking for a bit, Luke ties his hair back in the same style. Nighttime, on the rooftop across from Solon Hotel. In the luxury suite where the deal is being discussed, the curtains are half drawn. Through the gap, a hand with elegant, pronounced knuckles is visible. It idly taps on the leather armrest. A velvet box is humbly presented to the hand's owner. The individual pauses before leisurely waving his fingers. Someone with a deferential demeanour takes the box away. Although the hanging curtains obscure the faces of everyone in the room, it's not difficult to discern who bears the name Silas. It's as legendary as it is dangerous based on that interaction. Across the street and perched on the edge of the rooftop, 2 figures watch them as if it were a movie. Luke, his eyes alight with excitement, points out something. Silas isn't carrying a weapon. Isn't he afraid of someone making a move? His question is swiftly answered. The deferential attitude fails to save the life of Silas's business partner. Silas strikes so fast that even the rooftop audience can't follow his movement. His actions are a blur, but they see a terrified body yanked to the window by an invisible force. A mist swallows it. When it dissipates, nothing remains of the man. Oh, Silas doesn't need to carry a weapon because he's a weapon himself. No one in the luxurious suite dares to move. The deal's participants and Silas's underlings bow and lower their heads. Silas finally stands up, and Luke and Kieran see his face. He looks indifferent, as if the scene before him isn't his doing. The ceiling light casts ominous shadows across his features as he turns. He sweeps his gaze across the street. The 2 brothers, spectators a few seconds ago, suddenly become alert. Their bodies react faster than their minds. They propel themselves off the ledge and into the shadows with lightning-fast speed. Did he see us? I doubt it. We're so far away from him. Is his eyesight that good? An inexplicable feeling sends a chill down their spines. After a moment, they cautiously peek out from the edge of the rooftop. Silas has already left. Did he look bored to you? Luke breaks the silence. You mean when he dealt with that guy? Or when he left? Both. Kieran hadn't particularly paid attention to Silas's demeanour. Knowing Luke would keep an eye on it, he noticed something else. From the moment Silas entered the room, it was as if an invisible barrier had formed around him. No one dared to cross this unseen line to stand near him. It remained that way until the very end. He had entered alone, and he left alone. Kieran can't help but muse out loud. Is there someone who can get close to Silas? After 2 weeks of gathering intel, he had expected Silas to be surrounded by people. Now, it seems they couldn't be further from the truth. No allies dare to stand beside him, and no enemies can stand against him. Just like the expression on his face, everything seems boring to him. No one, Luke and Kieran declare in unison. The thought of Silas living such a tedious life for a long time while still having countless years ahead of him stirs a flicker of pity in their hearts. Then again, if they kill him, that's a different story. Chapter 3. Trick. This is the third rule of a successful ambush. Exploit your advantage when the enemy least expects it. For Luke and Kieran, their advantage lies in their sameness. Identical faces, identical builds, identical movements. They're almost the same person. It's enough to lower their opponent's guard and make them believe there's only one person. This trick has never failed them. From the streets they grew up in to Ever's research facility, it continues to work in the N109 zone. Whether it's purchasing necessities from someone who increases prices after glancing at Luke, fending off strangers who try to rob Kieran of their supplies, or slipping past a merchant into a protocol warehouse. Just like their names suggest, one is always in the light and the other is in the shadows. One plays the conspicuous target while the other lurks in the dark ready to strike. The side effects from the experiment have become their strength. When they act together, they are even more coordinated than one person. On Wednesday night, the concert hall in the N109 zone's bustling district will host a grand performance. At Mr. R's invitation, an orchestra was rushed over here after their international tour. For the first time, the hall's pipe organ sheds its dusty protective cover. It's not an important event. But after the hall manager repeatedly refused those willing to pay exorbitant prices for a seat, this performance and the mysterious Mr. R have become a hot topic in the N109 zone. In a corner unnoticed by all, 2 inconspicuous insects quietly enter the concert hall. Kieran is looking at 2 very different scenes. He crouches to hide behind the auditorium seats. Not far away, in the centre of this space, sits Silas. Kieran can only see Silas's back. The vast concert hall stands empty save for this lone figure, and his question resurfaces. Is there someone who can get close to Silas? Yet Silas just sits there. He's resting his eyes and waiting for the concert to begin like a normal person would. Kieran knows the concert's start will inevitably be delayed because of the other scene he's looking at. Through Luke's eyes, he sees the dressing room where the impeccably dressed conductor and orchestra members are bound one by one. Sheet music has been stuffed in their mouths to muffle any cries. After his hard work, Luke dusts himself off and bends down to retrieve a fallen dart. These pack quite a punch. The protocols really do make a difference. He's in awe. The protocol makes the dart feel a bit awkward to hold, but it's tolerable. Luke shakes his hand and checks himself in the mirror. Something's missing. He yanks the conductor's jacket off and puts it on. Should I go on stage with this? Their ability to converse effortlessly, even when apart, is perhaps the most useful side effect. It's a little too big. Try that violinist's outfit, the one from the 3rd row. Oh, this is a lot better. Ready? Wait. Luke takes a step toward the stage before stopping. He turns back to the dressing room and picks up an ice cube from the wine bucket on the table. He pops it in his mouth and crunches it. Now I'm ready. Just before he goes on stage, he hears Kieran's voice again. Before we do this, any last words? Nope, I have nothing to say. It's pointless anyway. They're still going to die. They might as well save the energy and wear a smile instead. Let's do this. The lights in the hall dim as the performance is scheduled to begin at this time. The curtain slowly rises and a spotlight switches on with a click. Luke is on stage within a few quick strides and stops before Silas. There's no music, but Silas doesn't open his eyes. It's as if he anticipated this. Luke's excitement grows. His hand, initially reaching for the dart, changes course on a whim. He grabs 2 small circular devices hidden at his waist and flings them at Silas. Mind if I borrow 3 minutes of your time? Let me have a go at killing you before the concert starts. His words echo through the hall. The small projectiles hurled at Silas are suspended in the soft mist around him. The person who stopped them with his power hasn't even lifted a finger. Luke grins. You might want to open your eyes. It could get messy, even for Onikinus's bossman. As soon as he closed his mouth, the spheres, squeezed by the black-red mist, suddenly burst. With a loud splash, water drenches the seats around Silas. Silas opens his eyes, his finger on his temple. Luke shrugs. I told you. What's your motive? Silas's nonchalant question echoes throughout the concert hall. My reason for wanting to kill you, huh? Luke rubs his face and pretends to be deep in thought. In the N109 zone, a lot of people want Silas dead. For profit, revenge, or because they're weak. He wonders if a spur-of-the-moment decision would pique the curiosity of this man who leads on Aquinas. But he decides to drag it out, at least for the show. That way he can buy time for Kieran, who's moving stealthily through the shadows. As their conversation continues, Kieran silently positions himself. Now, directly behind Silas, he holds several darts between his fingers. They're aimed at Silas's carotid artery. Through Luke's eyes, he monitors Silas's movements and confirms the man's attention is fixed on Luke, who's still fumbling for an answer. He's oblivious to Kieran's presence. Kieran bends his knees and prepares to lunge. And then, before he moves, he hears Silas's derisive chuckle. If you want to kill me, at least use a method that's less boring. From a distance, Kieran senses Luke's body go rigid on stage. He quickly realizes why Luke reacted that way. It's because of him. At some point, 2 wisps of black-red mist have enveloped his body. Although they looked easy to shake off, they pinned him in place. He can't move. How did Silas notice him? Restraining one of them effortlessly subdues the other. The owner of this power closes his eyes once more. The twins are then lifted into the air and hurled out of the concert hall, one after the other. The hall's doors slam shut, the lingering echo a composed mockery of their failed attempt. Huh? The twins scratch their heads before checking their necks, arms, and legs. They stare blankly at the concert hall's opulent chandelier before reality finally sinks in. Silas didn't kill us. Still shocked, Kieran sits up reluctantly. That's the first time we've ever been caught. Luke, still sprawled in the position he landed, tugs at Kieran's arm. But did you hear what he said? What? He called us boring. Chapter 4. Thrill Seeker. The fighting arena in the N109 zone lurks behind the facade of a 5-story building with neon lights. An oversized ring that surpasses expectations will greet you once you enter. Spectator seats climb the surrounding walls, and the highest one is perched almost perpendicular to the ring. At first glance, it looks like a fortress or lair of some ferocious beast. Noticing the members of Aquinas frequenting the place lately, Luke and Kieran tear down a recruitment flyer plastered outside and knock on the door. Get lost, we're not hiring. You're as skinny as a rail. I bet you two would die 100 times before landing a single punch. The door is slammed shut. The burly arena owner glares at them through a small window before stomping downstairs. Kieran chuckles. A rail? We're scarecrows at least. The next morning, Luke and Kieran are back and knock on the door to the arena. The owner answers, cursing under his breath. He freezes. The arena's fighters, mysteriously missing since dawn, are sprawled on the ground, clutching their stomachs and whimpering. The 2 young men he turned away yesterday grin. So, about your staff shortage. The reason for Aquinas' frequent visits soon becomes clear. On Wednesday night, the members of Aquinas storm into the arena with one goal: to take this place down. As the 2 groups clash in the arena with their weapons drawn, the leader of Aquinas materializes in the place with the best view. He surveys the chaos below unperturbed. Amidst the mayhem, the twins, having already shed their fighter outfits, move behind him. They exchange glances, then the 2 get down on one knee. Here's the 4th rule of a successful ambush. Swiftly abandon flawed tactics and use new strategies to confuse your opponent. Boss, we want to be your followers. Noticing Silas's silence, the 2 continue to speak. We'll be your blades, boss. We'll handle all the dirty work you can't be bothered with. Whether it's assassinations or heists, or pranks and scheming, we'll take care of it, boss. Our loyalty is yours. And approaching footsteps interrupt their unsolicited oath. The tips of Silas's shoes appear in Luke and Kieran's vision, and intimidation washes over them. Kieran looks at Luke from the corner of his eye. He sees the barely contained excitement in his brother's gaze. What will Silas do next? Luke is waiting for it. And Kieran realizes his own expression must mirror his twins. From the moment they were born, they were the same. They don't need mirrors. Simply looking at each other is enough to know their own faces. I have no use for trash, Silas states. A knife clatters to the ground between them. Prove yourselves. They look up and meet Silas's stern gaze. Below, gunfire erupts and blood splatters. The chaotic battle beckons. In less than half an hour, the gleaming knife is stained a dark red. The twins present it to Silas. "Well, the trash is on the ground now. Do you want us to do anything else?" The sounds of combat have turned into barely audible pleas for mercy. In the vast arena, only Silas, Luke, and Kieran remain standing. The hands holding the knife slightly tremble from excitement, not fear. Fresh blood drips from the blade's tip, their palms, and their nearly identical faces. It stains the once clean spectator walkways. The knife's cold glint reflects in Silas's eyes. He tilts his chin up slightly and smirks. "Now use each other's lives to prove yourselves." So, that's what it was. Kieran hears laughter echoing in his mind. Luke is laughing, and he's laughing too. So, that's what it was. Silas is also looking for some fun. They lost count of how many times they fought like this. Because of those side effects, their senses abound. Fighting each other during heated arguments no longer relieves their anger. Instead, it's a form of self-torture. But they soon discovered that fighting could earn them many things: painkillers, sedatives, and if the fight was severe enough, even a pass on the next day's trials. So, despite their reluctance, they became experts at fighting each other. Silas sits in the spectator seat. He watches the twins fight for the knife with an amused expression. Their faces are fierce, their movements swift and precise. Only when they draw near each other is there a barely perceptible hesitation, a quick exchange of glances as they try to come up with a strategy. Silas props up his chin on his hand. He can sense the brothers' true intentions. These young beasts are putting on a show. They carefully hide their fangs and claws while waiting for the right moment to throw the knife. Little do they know that their target has already grown weary of such tricks. Still, Silas stays in his seat. The persistence of these weaklings suddenly piqued his curiosity. He wants to see how this will play out. That's when the unexpected happens. The sharp sound of crystals piercing skin fills the air. The twin holding the knife goes limp, crying out in pain as he collapses. Like snakes, black crystals crawl up his face from within his body and reach his eyes. In an instant, the other twin, seemingly unharmed, also falls to his knees because of the unbearable agony. Their show falls apart and is replaced by the onset of the transformation. Chapter 5. The End. The knife tumbles to the ground and stops at Silas's feet. He bends down to pick it up. A crystal-covered hand trembles as it desperately reaches for the blade. Silas smirks and hands it over. The person before him musters all his strength to aim the knife at his heart. He tries to push it in, but he hesitates and freezes as he notices his brother, who's bound to him, curl up into a ball because of their shared agony. These two are like marionettes tangled in invisible strings. When one transforms, the other feels inexplicable torment. Silas watches with keen interest. He wonders if this bond will remain unbroken even in the face of death. He knows this question now looms over them like a suffocating nightmare. He stays because he wants to know what they'll do. The knife's tip veers off by a few centimeters. Then, the twin slashes the knife upward. The crystals shatter and blood splatters onto the spectator seats. The twin abandons the thought of ending his life and instead violently gouges out the crystals. Silas slowly claps. "At least you've got some guts." He lifts the knife again but is quickly intercepted by the other twin. Although he's unaffected by the transformation, he's forced to endure the pain due to their shared senses. Still, he grips his brother's hand. "Don't worry about me." His voice lacks its usual lilt and is replaced by a chilling calm. "Let me help you. I'll help you." The weight behind the word help is unmistakable. Its true meaning is unspoken but clearly understood. Okay. Luke and Kieran have never realized how loud a heartbeat could be until now. Perhaps this is the noise a person only hears at life's end. They come to the same conclusion while the one who didn't transform struggles to control the knife. Beside them, a fiend whispers, "If you do this, you won't survive either." "I'll die with him." That's his response to Silas. He takes a few deep breaths before flashing a sly grin. "I don't care anyway." "Is that so?" A wisp of black-red mist suddenly plunges into his twin's chest. A more intense pain immediately follows, the trembling now mixed with a fear they've never experienced before. It's the fear of dying. Silas intends to kill them this time. It feels as if a chunk of their chest is missing. Their limbs gradually numb, the cold blood building up in their throats. They shudder uncontrollably. At first they manage to hide their terror, but as the mist grows sharper and touches their beating hearts, so this is what death feels like. The feeling of being at death's door finally breaks their resolve. Fragmented pleas escape their lips. "No!" but the agony of their demise intensifies. Silas's towering figure blurs into a beast toying with its prey. Their internal organs feel violently constricted, their desperate desire to live drowning in pain. Panting, they spit out blood and raise their voices. "Stop! I thought you had a death wish." "We don't." With a derisive snort, Silas opens his palm. The mist dissipates before it claims their lives. The once bright room is plunged into darkness. A strong force surrounds the twins and shatters the growing black crystals. A ringing persists in Luke and Kieran's ears, but the pain vanishes in a heartbeat. "In the N109 zone, dying is easy," Silas says as he leaves, his tone almost teasing. "Staying alive, now that's the real proof of strength." Chapter 6. Twins. "Boss, we're not here to kill you this time." 2 weeks have passed, and Luke and Kieran once again stand before Silas. They fully recovered. One was never injured in the first place, and the other's wounds, a result of gouging out the crystals, have healed. There are only grotesque scars on his face and body. Otherwise they appear healthy. "We genuinely want to be your followers." Emphasizing this statement, they drop to one knee. Silas is slightly irritated. "Drop the act." After the twins exchange glances, Luke looks up with a sly grin. "Actually, we're curious to see if anyone can kill you, boss. Since we couldn't do it, we want to stick around and see if someone else can." They widen their eyes soon after. "If they're not mistaken," Silas flashed a cold smile tinged with anticipation. It's an expression they've never seen before. But the smile vanishes so quickly that they wonder if they imagined it. After a moment of hesitation, Luke lowers his head again and speaks in a respectful tone. "Boss, that Sherman guy is suspicious. We'll keep an eye on him for you." Bowing his head, Kieran adds, "We know his address, his usual spots, and his contacts. We can report to you every 2 weeks. Go then." These words constitute the only command they receive. "Understood, boss." When they finally stand up, they realize Silas has already vanished. As they exit the base, the streets of the N109 zone remain as sunless as ever. Passing a glass wall, they pause to look at their reflections. It's been years since they used a mirror, since they always used each other. It's an extra perk of being identical twins, but now that's no longer possible. "I still think twins should look like twins." Luke pulls out the backpack he's been carrying and fishes out 2 masks. He tosses one to Kieran and puts the other on himself. "I got 303 to make these. Just found out he set up a workshop in the N109 zone. Try it." Kieran examines the mask in his hands and holds it up to his face. It's a perfect fit. He puts it on and playfully taps Luke with the long beak of his mask. "Why are we even wearing these in the first place?" "No reason, but with them, we're identical again." It's noon. The 2 young men walk side by side down a path that shuns all light. They stretch lazily. "What do you think his smile meant? Can someone actually kill him?" "I'm guessing it's a no." "Yeah, I don't think so either.